One song, 4 minutes and 34 seconds, 96 million streams in 7 days, a new world record, the biggest rap war in 20 years. The whole thing, all 6 diss tracks, every Billboard chart hit, every viral meme, generated a total of about $15.3 million in US master and publishing revenue. That's it. 2 of the biggest artists on earth, 6 tracks, 10 weeks of constant news coverage, and the master recording and publishing revenue together adds up to less than a single mid-tier athlete's annual contract. So how does a rap beef break the internet, win a Grammy, headline the Super Bowl, and pay out like a small movie? Today we follow the money.
To understand how a fight this big paid this little, you have to go back to October 2023.
That month, Drake and J. Cole dropped a track called First Person Shooter. Cole used one bar to call himself, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar the Big Three in rap. A compliment, or so it seemed. 5 months of silence followed. Then, on March 22nd, 2024, Future and Metro Boomin released a song called Like That. Halfway through, Kendrick stepped on the beat with one line, "It's just Big Me." He wasn't accepting third place. He was rejecting the whole premise. This wasn't actually new ground. Back in August 2013, Kendrick had jumped on Big Sean's track Control and named 11 rappers, including Drake, saying he wanted to murder them lyrically. Drake brushed it off at the time. The truce held for a decade, but the line had already been drawn. What Like That did in March 2024 was reopen that 10-year-old wound, but with one crucial difference. In 2013, streaming was a side business. By 2024, it was the entire music economy. Every diss track was no longer just a verse. It was a financial asset, a chart strategy, and a stock pump rolled into one. And here's what made the timing surgical. J. Cole had also responded to Like That in early April with a track called 7 Minute Drill. Within days, he apologized on stage at his own festival and pulled the song from streaming. Kendrick was now left fighting Drake alone, with the cultural high ground to himself. What followed was the most compressed rap exchange in modern history. Watch the calendar. April 19th, 2024, Drake's push-ups. April 19th again, his tailor-made freestyle, using AI cloned voices of Tupac and Snoop, which he had to pull down after Tupac's estate threatened to sue. April 30th, Kendrick's Euphoria. May 3rd, Kendrick's 616 in LA. Same night, Drake's Family Matters. Less than an hour after Drake's track, Kendrick dropped Meet the Grams. Then the next day, May 4th, 2024, less than 20 hours later, Kendrick released Not Like Us. Think about that pace. In a normal album cycle, a major artist drops one song every few months and tours it for a year. Kendrick released 3 diss tracks in 36 hours. That's not music industry strategy, that's military strategy. And it's the first clue to where the money does and doesn't come from. Here's the cold math behind a streaming hit. Spotify and Apple Music pay artists roughly 0.3 of a cent per stream, and the actual artist usually receives a fraction of that after the label, the publisher, and the producers take their cuts. So when you hear that Not Like Us pulled 96.5 million streams in 7 days, a world record at the time, the master and publishing revenue from those streams works out to a few $100,000 that week, not millions. Hip Hop DX, citing Hits Daily Double, reported the exact figures in mid-May 2024. Not Like Us generated about $275,000 in 1 week. Euphoria earned $210,000. Like That pulled $135,000, split between multiple artists. That's the peak, the blast zone, and it's already nowhere near the $50 million number people were tossing around online. And here's something most people don't think about. That $275,000 for Not Like Us wasn't going into Kendrick's pocket alone. The official BMI registrations list 5 songwriters: Kendrick, his producer Mustard, his co-producer Soundwave, sample flipper Sean Momberger, and a posthumous credit to Ray Charles, whose 1961 song The Beat was built around. Add Interscope, Mustard's label 10 Summers Publishing, Songs of Universal, and Warner Tamerlane Publishing to that ledger, and Kendrick's actual personal cut is a slice of a slice. The headline revenue figure is gross. The take-home number is much smaller. In December 2024, Billboard partnered with Luminate, the data company behind the official charts, and published the full revenue breakdown. This is the real ledger. 6 tracks. Total combined revenue, master recordings plus publishing in the United States, roughly $15.3 million. Let's walk through it line by line. Not Like Us, Kendrick, $7.6 million. Roughly half of the entire pot from one song. The single biggest earner of the war. Like That, Future, Metro Boomin, Lumen Kendrick, $4.6 million. The track that started everything, split among multiple artists and producers. Then the drop-off is brutal. Family Matters, Drake, 981,000. Push-Ups, Drake, 969,000. Meet the Grams, Kendrick, 795,000. Euphoria, Kendrick, 441,000. Added up, Kendrick's 4 tracks pulled around 13.4 million. Drake's 2 diss tracks pulled about 1.95 million combined. The financial scoreboard is roughly 7-1 in Kendrick's favor. But notice what's missing from the list. Drake's tailor-made freestyle, pulled. Drake's The Heart Part 6, not counted by Luminate. Kendrick's 616 in LA, also not included. The actual feud generated more songs than the official ledger counts. Now look at the volume those dollars came from. Not Like Us set the Spotify record for the most streams in a single day for any American hip-hop song, 10.99 million plays in 24 hours. It crossed 96 million US on-demand streams in its first 7 days. For comparison, a quintuple platinum song in the old CD era, 5 million units sold, was a career achievement. Not Like Us did roughly 19 times that volume of listens in a single week, and earned a fraction of what one platinum album once paid. This is the machine you have to understand. Streaming traded scarcity for scale. You can no longer sell one fan an album for $15. You sell millions of fans a fraction of a cent per listen. The volume is enormous. The per unit revenue is tiny. So how do artists actually make real money inside that system? 2 ways: catalog momentum and live touring. And this is where the Kendrick-Drake war stops being about diss tracks and becomes about everything else. In the week of May 3rd to May 6th, 2024, Kendrick's entire discography earned 50.62 million streams, up 49% from the previous Friday to Monday window. Drake's catalog activity, by contrast, fell about 5% during the same stretch. That's the real prize, not the diss track itself, the halo effect. Every new listener who came to hear Not Like Us got fed Kendrick's back catalog by the algorithm. Songs from 2012, from 2015, from 2017, and those plays each generated their own micropayments every day in the background. Multiply that across millions of new listeners over months, and the diss track stops being the revenue. It becomes the advertisement for the revenue. Kendrick understood this better than anyone. On June 19th, 2024, Juneteenth, he hosted a one-night concert at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles called The Pop-Out. Over 20 West Coast artists joined him on stage, including Dr. Dre, Tyler the Creator, and Roddy Ricch. He performed Not Like Us 5 times in a row. Each performance trended on social media. Each one drove fresh streams. He wasn't just promoting a track. He was rebuilding the West Coast rap scene around it and turning his catalog into the soundtrack of a movement. Then, on November 22nd, 2024, he surprise dropped his 6th studio album, GNX. No announcement, no rollout. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, pulling 379.7 million on-demand streams in its first week. That's the strategy in full view. A diss track became a concert became a movement became an album became a tour. Each layer compounded the value of the layer before it. The 7.6 million from Not Like Us was the spark. Everything else was the fire. Here is the edge most analysts missed. Kendrick didn't just win the rap battle, he won the release cadence battle. And in streaming, release cadence is the entire game. Drake's response strategy was traditional. Write a song, sit with it, drop it, promote it. He released 2 main diss tracks in a span of 2 weeks. Kendrick released 4 tracks in 6 days, with Not Like Us coming less than 20 hours after Meet the Grams. What that does to a recommendation algorithm is brutal. Every new track resets the news cycle, re-triggers the playlists, and forces Spotify and Apple to push his catalog again. 1 song is a release. 4 songs in a week is a takeover, and the cultural payoff stacked vertically. Not Like Us went on to win 5 Grammy Awards in February 2025, including Record of the Year and Song of the Year. A diss track, wearing the biggest trophy in mainstream music. 8 days after the Grammys, on February 9th, 2025, Kendrick headlined the Super Bowl 59 halftime show in New Orleans. He performed Not Like Us in front of an audience that traditionally hovers around 130 million people in the US alone. In the 3 hours after the show, Not Like Us streams jumped 430% on Spotify. Within a day, Kendrick had locked down the top 5 tracks on Apple Music. His monthly listener count on Spotify hit 88.8 million, a new all-time high for any hip-hop artist on the platform. For comparison, Drake's monthly listeners at the same moment were 75.3 million, still elite but no longer #1. Then came the real payday. April 19th, 2025, Kendrick and SZA kicked off the Grand National Tour in Minneapolis. The opening night alone grossed $9.12 million from 47,354 fans, the first time any rapper had crossed 9 million in a single show, breaking Eminem's 2019 record. By the time the tour wrapped in December 2025, it had played 47 shows across 4 continents and grossed $358.7 million against 1.7 million tickets sold.
Now compare that to Drake's response. He launched the Anita Max Win Tour in February 2025. 12 shows across Australia and New Zealand. Attendance, roughly 200,000. Total gross, $30.3 million. Healthy numbers for almost any artist on earth, just not in the same conversation as 358 million. The diss tracks generated maybe 15 million. The halo around them generated more than 20 times that. Drake's response was a different shape. On February 14th, 2025, 5 days after Kendrick's Super Bowl performance, he and Party Next Door dropped their joint album, Some Sexy Songs for You. It worked. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 246,000 equivalent album units in its first week, generating 287 million streams, the biggest streaming week for any album in 2025 at that point. That #1 made Drake the soloist tied with Jay-Z and Taylor Swift for the most Billboard 200 chart toppers in history. He hadn't lost his audience. The catalog was still there. The deals were still landing, but the narrative had shifted, and narrative is what feeds tours, sponsorships, and brand value. By 2024's end, Drake's total catalog stood at 80.7 million album consumption units in the US, more than twice Kendrick's 29.1 million. The lifetime numbers favor Drake. The 2024 moment belonged to Kendrick. That is the actual answer to where the money went. It didn't go into the songs. It went into the audience the songs built. But the money story doesn't end on stage. It ends in a courtroom. On November 25th, 2024, 6 months after Not Like Us dropped, 3 weeks before Billboard's revenue report, Drake's company Frozen Moments filed a legal pre-action petition in New York. He accused his own label, Universal Music Group, of artificially inflating Kendrick's track using bots, payola, and pay-to-play deals with Spotify. In January 2025, Drake withdrew that filing and refiled a full defamation lawsuit. He alleged UMG had licensed Not Like Us to Spotify at a roughly 30% discount in exchange for boosted recommendations, and had paid Apple to have Siri redirect users to Kendrick's song when they asked for Drake's album, Certified Lover Boy. UMG denied everything. In October 2025, a federal court dismissed the case, ruling the claims speculative and protected as artistic expression. Drake appealed. And then, in November 2025, the story flipped. A new class action lawsuit was filed in California by rapper RBX against Spotify. The allegation? That Drake's own catalog had benefited from billions of fraudulent streams on the platform. Drake wasn't a defendant, he was the example. And the lawsuit suggested the same fraud detection failures Drake accused UMG of exploiting may have been propping up his own numbers for years. This isn't an isolated story. In September 2024, US federal prosecutors brought the country's first major streaming fraud indictment against a North Carolina musician named Michael Smith. The allegation? He used AI to generate hundreds of thousands of songs, then deployed 10,000 bot accounts to stream them. The estimated take from the scheme? $10 million. One man, fake songs, real money, and it tells you everything about how vulnerable the streaming ledger actually is. If a single bedroom operator could pull $10 million from bots, what could a major label do? Or what could a competitor's label do to a rival? That's the question Drake's lawyers were really asking. Step back and look at the full picture. 2 artists, 6 diss tracks, roughly $15 million in direct song revenue, $358 million in tour revenue on one side, $30 million on the other, 5 Grammys, a Super Bowl, a federal lawsuit, a counter allegation, and underneath it all, a $28 billion streaming industry where nobody, not Drake, not Kendrick, not Spotify itself, agrees on whose numbers are real. So who won? Culturally, it isn't even close. Kendrick took the Grammys, the Super Bowl, the record tour, the meme war. Financially, the headline figures favored him too, but there's a darker question buried under all of it. If the most streamed rap track of the year can pay this little, if a record-breaking song still loses to a single stadium tour by a factor of 40, then who actually wins
wins in modern music. Not the artists making the songs, the platforms distributing them, the labels owning the contracts, the companies selling the ads, the arenas renting the seats. Drake and Kendrick fought the biggest rap battle of a generation, and the real story isn't who lost it, it's how little either of them got paid for making the rest of the music industry rich.